I have asked Mr. Sergio de Mello to serve as my special representative. He will lead the UN effort in Iraq for the next 4 months. I think he is someone who will hit the ground running.
I will do my best to make sure that the interests of the Iraqi people come first.
For months, I refused to let Sergio go. There was lots of pressure from the Americans, from the Brits and everywhere. I said, Sergio has a job. He is a high commissioner of human rights, and that's a full-time job, and he's not available. Let's look at other people. And the pressures continued. They went to Sergio directly and all that. In the end, we agreed that he would go and help for 4 months.
As a UN soldier, he was drafted. He used this word, to go to Iraq.
I think he was completely the correct choice. He was the most skilled negotiator, the most skilled diplomat, the best representative that Kofi Annan had. And he was not pro-American, he was pro-UN.
We started immediately, right on the first day there was a meeting with Paul Bremer. Bremer told the press the UN had a vital role, and that word kept being repeated a lot. We wondered what it meant at the end of the day.
I mean, it was a very difficult time in those early days because we didn't know what we were doing.
Ahmed, he would say, have you got the resolution? And I would hand it to him, and he would put more markings on it, and we would sit down and say, okay, this means in human rights we would be doing that.
But of course, Sergio was very much conscious that 1483 gave the civil administrator probably more powers than Saddam ever had.
So we used to come to this cafe, usually 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. We did it a lot during and start of and during the Iraq War. It was during a lot of quite intense in that period of March, April, May, I guess, before he finally agreed to go to Iraq.
But he was against the war.
Ah, yes, absolutely. Not against removing tyrants like Saddam at all, but certainly against that sort of unilateral process. Well, he was a multilateralist. I think he saw achieving more, particularly for the third world. Although many of us identify with the third world aspirations, but it was more almost emotional with him, I would say.
Cette obstination à être sur le terrain. Pas simplement un théoricien, un intellectuel qu'il était, un philosophe qu'il était, un homme de la Sorbonne et des belles lettres, un homme de terrain.
Sergio loved Africa. He had a special feeling about Africa. On one of my trips for the UNHCR, I went to visit refugees from Rwanda on the border in Tanzania, and we had to stop for fuel. We arrived at just before sunset, and there was a smell in the air that you only smell in Africa. It's the smell of the earth and the light. And Sergio felt that too, that there was something really special about Africa that really touched him deeply, and I certainly understood that.
Está ali aquela fotografia, por exemplo, que ela foi exposta aí. E perguntaram, mas isto é verdade que foi em 74? Disse, foi em 72 ou 73. Foi. Mas como vocês tinham escravatura? Disse, não tínhamos escravatura, mas... Em 74, a África disse, não, 74 ou 73, Moçambique ainda era uma colónia. E eles permitiam-se fazer aquilo, marcar o homem na testa com ferro de gado. Não é?
Troops arrived from Portugal to crush the nationalist resistance.
Viva Frelimo! Viva! Viva Frelimo! Viva!
At midnight on June 25, 1975, Mozambique becomes independent. the Portuguese flag is lowered, making it Africa's 43rd independent state.
Mas havia já um processo de pessoas estarem deslocadas por causa da guerra e que se refugiaram na Zâmbia, se refugiaram na Tanzânia, se refugiaram no Malawi. E depois da independência era preciso trazer essa gente toda de volta para o país. Foi assim que eu conheci o Sergio Vieira de Mello, aquele jovem brasileiro, todo entusiasmado com ver os moçambicanos já assentarem aqui pé na sua própria terra.
C'était difficile, oui, c'était juste après l'indépendance, mais c'était intéressant parce que c'était un pays qui naissait.
A gente acreditava no sonho do socialismo. Havia falta de tanta coisa, mas havia tanta solidariedade. Talvez a razão fosse porque éramos todos muito iguais. Éramos todos muito iguais. Tanto eu ia para a fila da cooperativa, como ia para a fila o meu empregado. Eu e o meu empregado cruzávamos na fila. Eu à frente, ele atrás, ou ele atrás, eu à frente. Eu penso que o Sergio Vieira de Mello viveu este momento lindo de Moçambique. Viveu aquilo que é sonho de um país que é independente. E nós, quando somos jovens, estes valores de independência, estes valores de que a gente vai mudar o mundo, são muito mais fortes em nós.
Bom, o que nós pretendíamos efetivamente era ver o país a andar para frente. E o Sérgio, embora trabalhando para as Nações Unidas e sendo brasileiro, estava integrado nesse esforço.
How Sergio was moving around Maputo, how he knew everybody, how he knew all the ambassadors, how he knew the people in the government as if they were his close friends. He said, my God, how am I going to do this myself, you know?
Dr. Sergio Builo, na inivani walomeli hansi shinene ntamu, ngalina nchungu, kunusiwana ntamu shinene, majahanya na ine.
Sergio, il ouvrait la porte, il montait devant à côté du chauffeur et ils étaient un peu gênés parce qu'ils n'avaient pas l'impression de pouvoir faire leur travail comme il faut. Mais après, ils ont compris que, en fait, c'était parce que la relation était différente. C'était pas une relation hiérarchique et que Sergio appréciait le travail qu'il faisait.
Meu caro Max, sua cartinha recebida lembra-me os 2 anos passados juntos, quando a independência de Moçambique ainda era criança.
At that time, it was still the time of hope. You felt you were working towards something. You were helping a government getting itself together and moving forward, because it was very difficult in the beginning.
É das maiores mágoas que eu ainda guardo aqui, foi isso. O esforço que tínhamos feito de construção depois da independência, nós vimos diariamente a ser destruído por causa da guerra.
Depois do conflito, o Mello veio cá para a fase final de um segundo repatriamento de refugiados moçambicanos em 1996. Nós partimos de uma situação muitíssimo difícil, porque tratava-se de reorganização de 5 milhões de habitantes.
You saw the bullet holes on the buildings, and of course the trench and the defensive areas that was implanted. But now it's a playground.
para aprender, a dificuldade tem sido de material. Por exemplo, aqui tem muitas crianças que não têm lápis. Vêm sem lápis quando perguntam se o papai não tem dinheiro. Vamos lá dizer isso.
Essas crianças estão, se calhar, em termos de pobreza, são capazes de ser tão pobres quanto eu era quando era criança. Portanto, de lá para cá, há crianças que continuam tão pobres como eu era e que não mudou. Mas há uma coisa radicalmente diferente. Elas vivem num país independente.
Via de regra, pessoas que não conhecem o continente africano têm uma atitude bastante cínica e pessimista em relação à África, ao futuro, às chances que a África tem de superar seus muitos problemas, né? Apesar disso, eu acho que existe uma tendência democrática muito forte.
É de extrema importância associar sempre o desenvolvimento, qualidade de homem com H grande que está dentro de nós. E é nisto que Sérgio estava envolvido. Era por contribuir para uma maior dignidade humana, para uma melhor qualidade de seres humanos, onde quer que eles estivessem.
De Mello was also very loud when he got wound up. Have you heard him? So loud. This guy was red when he got wound up.
Yeah, he got.
Oh my God, was he loud?
There was something a little bit military about him then. You know,
his presentation.
Presentation.
He was like the general.
Yes, general who's come back.
How the hell can they do this? I can't believe this is unbelievable. I'm not having this crap anymore.
He had that
Put on his voice, no?
I
always remember an American delegation coming out from one meeting with him, led by an old congressman, and he said, you know, every time I meet Sergio Vieira de Mello, two things happen. First, he makes me feel badly informed, and second, he makes me feel badly dressed.
The rest of us look like slobs. We're sweaty and dirty. He looks like he's just stepped out of a clothing store. I don't know how he did it. I didn't think that people in Brazil understood what a great man he was. When I went to a dinner in Rio de Janeiro with some journalists, I was surprised. I said, why aren't you doing a cover story on Sergio Vieira de Mello? He's the most important international civil servant Brazil has in the world. They said, well, he hasn't been in Brazil in a long time. We don't know him that well anymore. I said, but he is a proud Brazilian.
É brasileiro 100%. Queria ser outra coisa. Onde é que é a guerra? E era excelente aluno em física e química. Tanto que o professor de química tinha muita vontade que ele se tornasse um químico. Fez curso de eletricidade por correspondência, fez um rádio para babá, meteu-se a consertar a televisão também, até que um dia mexeu num lugar que não pode mexer, levou um choque muito grande, foi parar na outra parede. Quer dizer, como ele diz, ele procurava encrencas. Entrou para a Sorbonne e fez curso de filosofia. Tomou parte naquela rebelião dos estudantes, apanhou, ficou quase morto no hospital. Mas para mim não contaram, né? E escreveu também um artigo num jornal chamado Le Combat. E assinou, declarou que era brasileiro. Aí era a época da ditadura aqui no Brasil, isso ficou conhecido, né? E ele ficou proibido de vir ao Brasil 4 anos. O pai era diplomata.
Ele queria ser diplomata aqui do serviço?
Bom, ele tinha essa ideia, mas em vista do pai ter sido cassado, ele desistiu. Então foi ser funcionário das Nações Unidas.
Sergio Vieira de Mello, Special Envoy of the High Commissioner for Refugees and Director for Repatriation of UNTAC.
Okay. Would you mind spelling your last name?
Vieirademello.
You're cautiously optimistic, or?
More than cautiously, I would say, and fundamentally optimistic, because Cambodia, I think, deserves the commitment and optimism of us all.
So this is the work of Khmer Rouge. 2 million of people disappeared during that period. Because of the war, because of the Khmer Rouge, 100,000 of Cambodians left the country and stay in a camp in Thailand, more than 300,000 in the three political parties, the Khmer Rouge camp, Son San camp, and Phun Simpet camp. And it's important after the peace agreement was signed in Paris on 91 that all Cambodians have the right to come back to Cambodia. Sergio, he tried to put back the family together. The main objective of his repatriation is not only to bring Cambodians from Thai border and say, now you are home and then do what you want. No, he tried to put Cambodians together with the family.
It's a very, very difficult work for the repatriation team, because you have to bring in the former enemy who used to fight each other, and now you have to not only to stop fighting, but to create the conditions so that they share the benefit of being all together.
Le Haut Commissariat pour les réfugiés avait un plan très défini, très bien fait pour le rapatriement des 370 000 Cambodgiens qui étaient en Thaïlande. Et puis ce plan n'a pas marché du tout. Visiblement, il fallait s'adapter tout de suite. Et Sergio a de suite compris que les Cambodgiens ne voulaient pas être rapatriés en masse dans les endroits qu'on avait préparés à l'avance, pour de très bonnes raisons. Ils voulaient, eux, rentrer dans leur village.
He saw repatriation as a way of also liberation. We asked them, where do you want to go back to? What is your preferred place of destination? They were dumbfounded by this question. For them, this was the first time in their lives that anyone was in fact giving them a choice on anything meaningful.
Sergio was very strongly of the opinion that if people wanted to return to areas controlled by the Khmer Rouge, they should have a right to do so. We actually went into Khmer Rouge-held territory, and that was a first one, because nobody, not even the special representative of the United Nations, Mr. Akashi, had actually gone into Khmer Rouge territory. He opened the door and he managed to involve them in the dialogue, very strongly believing in the fact that we should talk to everybody, whichever side of the equation they were on. That's actually Sergio, a big back on his shoulders and his pants rolled up.
Towards the end of the lunch, they said to us, we would like you to swim in the river, in the Mongkolbarai River. Sergio and I looked at one another, and one of us said, and I don't remember who, but we didn't bring swimming suits, because we were not obviously keen to jump into this river with the Khmer Rouge, or with anyone for that matter. And they said, never mind, we'll give you sarongs. We really didn't swim, where we just kept to make sure we had a smile on our faces, and when they asked us, how is it, we said, oh, the water is beautiful, fantastic water, nice and refreshing. And they said, we wanted you to go into this river to sense how clean and natural this water is, as opposed to the days when the Vietnamese were occupying Cambodia, which according to them, this river was full of corpses and human body parts.
That was typical Sergio. If the people want to go back to a certain area and you have to talk to people who even inside yourself you may despise and you really don't want to talk to, Sergio will do it because he needed to find a solution. But when he would talk to them, he would be very nice. He would be very charming. They would immediately be seduced by him and so help him to get what he wants to get. That was his strength.
And in fact, one of our journalist friends said that his biography would be War Criminals I Have Known, because he was quite well known for dealing with these bad guys. But he had more than just a professional interest.
He was formed in the same universities that the leadership of the Khmer Rouge had all gone to the Sorbonne. What went wrong? What had moved these people to turn into mass murderers? I think there was an intellectual curiosity to try and understand that.
He stuck to his positions of principle. For refugees to go home, they have to decide voluntarily where they go. No pressure from you, the Khmer Rouge. UNHCR decides when they will go home, not you. The refugees decide where they want to go to, not you. And once they're home, we want to do what we have to do, which is to visit them, check on them. He literally picked up their claws, these claws that they had on the people for 15, 16 years, and said, hands off.
Over the years, Cambodia has been covered literally with layers of mines. And that, I must say, has been our main preoccupation. How to check, double check, triple check that land that is being assigned or allocated to returnees is indeed mine-free.
But there is no way of being absolute.
There is no way. No one will ever give you a guarantee that a given plot of land is mine-free in Cambodia.
When he arrived, they weren't going to move because they didn't have land to go to. It was mined, it was not available. And we had spent enormous amounts to do surveys and aerial satellite photographs, etc., of the land for them to go to. And they were not interested in moving to the land. And overnight, Sergio said, no, we won't take them to the land. We'll give them $50 a head cash as an incentive. That was unheard of. We don't give refugees cash to go back. And he said, no, it's not going to work else. And he did it. He got approval. To cut a long story short, as a result, he got all the refugees back in time for the elections, which no one thought was going to happen when he started.
I remember contacting Sergio saying, listen, the Thais want us to start on the 29th. He said, no, this is our repatriation. I want to send a message that the repatriation is under the auspices of a humanitarian organization. We're going to start on the 30th of March.
I remember one meeting in particular where I think there were 50 or 60 NGO representatives in one room facing Sergio and all asking critical and sharp questions about why are you starting this operation, why are you putting people at risk, UN, what do you stand for, you cannot claim that you are going to be returning these people in safety and dignity. For me, that's still a demonstration of real leadership, having the guts to stick your neck out even and take a decision which is controversial, but in which you yourself, Sergio, had been very convinced that he was taking the right decision.
The whole world literally was watching to see what would happen with the first group of Cambodians going home. He's sitting and he's literally dripping. Because he was making the calls himself, we're now crossing the bridge, we are now going to do this. So he had the radio and he was in fact directing this first convoy, which was a huge event. Over time he kept wearing this safari suit, this elegant man. I used to say to him, but when are you going to get rid of this safari suit? He goes, I'm actually attached to this safari suit because it brings me good luck. You may want to wash it occasionally. He says, no, I'm afraid if I wash it, the good luck might evaporate.
No, we will
It's
come
a
back
bit
in
slow,
a
huh?
There is
You're not impressed, huh?
He was very close with, as usual, the leadership of the country, but also King Sihanouk. Became very close. Sihanouk adored him, and etc. And Sergio had access to the palace, and in a way that no one else did in the whole UN mission. He got King Sihanouk to come to the station to receive the first returning refugees, etc. Big thing for Cambodia. And I used to say, but Sergio, you know, this politically, this is a bit surprising. King Sihanouk's reputation is a bit mixed. He said, but I had his photograph on my wall in the 60s as one of the founders of the non-aligned movement. Sihanouk was, for him, one of the founding figures of the liberation, non-aligned movement of the world. So he had a great affinity for that group of leaders. No matter what they might have become subsequently, he kept that loyalty. But that was Sergio. Once he was loyal, he was loyal. And it was very positive in the sense that he had a lot of support from the palace, so he succeeded to bring back everyone for the vote, in time for the vote, which was a miraculous achievement.
Lui, il voulait absolument que je fusse auprès de lui dans son travail. Et c'est ainsi que j'ai présidé, c'est lui qui me demandait cela, j'ai présidé les cérémonies de rapatriement des Cambodgiens, qui nous comprenaient très bien. Il était venu de loin, mais il a très vite compris la mentalité, l'esprit des Cambodgiens.
If you look into the whole exercise of the UNTAC, I think the repatriation was a success. Because of his personality, he could make a lot of things successful. But you know, at the time, what we tried to tell the UN, 1.5 years is not enough. It should be longer. This is one of the points I regretted, because if the UN had stayed a longer period, maybe it would be more stabilized than now.
So when the UN is criticized here and there, that's when you basically want to stay as close to Sergio as possible, because he made all of us look good. And for people who are believers in multilateralism, who are believers in humanitarianism, who are believers in the ideals of the UN, he made these ideals look good, really good, and he made them feasible and doable.
Bong Harabam គឺបងគិតថាវាជាពីដំបូងកាលពីបងនៅក្មេងបងគិតថាវាជាធ្វើឲ្យបងសប្បាយនឹងហើយនឹងកាលក្មេងចា
On the second floor of this building. I think it's this same one.
I think it is.
This one.
We can't get in. Let's begin. Let me have a look.
And in fact, our very last meeting together was in this apartment.
Yeah.
Jahansha was there.
Yeah, that was. But he hadn't moved into Grand Secretary properly. He came to New York, dropped his stuff, and went to Iraq. So he never moved into the other one.
That's where we met the last day, and he left the next morning for Baghdad.
I had a dream about him. It was a month after he died, in which he came back to see me. And he said, look, I've been dead for a month. It's time for me to go wherever dead people go. And he said, it's been a strange month. Huh? And, you know, all these people have been saying these things about me.
This isn't what I was like. You know that. We all know that I'm much more human than that.
Whenever he briefed the Security Council, I think I aged several years in the hours leading up to that, as he would fine-tune paragraphs. He'd insist on them being in at least 3 different languages so he could address all the council members in their languages, and simply putting this final product together was a nerve-wracking experience.
Because he didn't really believe in structures too much. Sergio wanted things done. So for a deputy, even though I'm a very close personal friend, it was often very difficult because he would bypass completely. And I was responsible for the police in Timor, for example. He'd call up the police chief and give him instructions and forget to tell me. And of course I'd go storming in and say, look, am I in charge of the police around? Oh, sorry, of course, yes, charming. But was so impatient that his relentlessness led to an impatience which was often difficult.
Come with me. 1 month. 1 month. Set up the office, and I know you have things to take care of in London, and of course, you pack your bag, you put in enough stuff for 1 month. After 2 weeks, you say, come on, Ahmed, you're enjoying yourself, huh? Do you really have to go after 2 weeks? 2 more weeks. Only 2 more weeks, we can fix this and do that. And listen, go take care of your business and come back. So I do that. There is no way you can refuse when Sergio says, come on, 2 more weeks. And the 2 more weeks turn into 2 more weeks and 2 more months, and etc.
J'aurais juste aimé mieux le connaître parce que depuis le 19 août, on a rencontré pas mal de gens et j'ai l'impression que ses collègues et ses amis le connaissaient mieux que ses enfants, quoi.
I think he was very much looking forward to settling down in Geneva, to have an adult relationship with his children, make it clear to them why he was drawn to the big picture, to the big world. Indirectly, it was also a part of his love for them. He could be away for months. You know, he was off in East Timor, and he said, well, why can't you come by? And I said, Sergio, it's not on the way to anywhere.
You can see in their faces, in their eyes. They knew him because he was here more than 2 years in the worst of the times for Timor. And that's what they remember, that he came here in the worst of the times and led them out of these horrendous times where nothing existed, nothing worked until the restoration of independence.
East Timorese militia with Indonesian military backing had ransacked, burnt and looted and killed those who were trying to get independence for East Timor. They rampaged when the referendum went against Indonesia, and they destroyed the place. They destroyed the cities, they destroyed half the countryside.
He went to East Timor mainly because of me, because when we needed a UN High Representative in East Timor, Sergio wanted to be the head of the United Nations High Commission on Refugees. But I said to Kofi Annan, I was then American ambassador to the UN, and I said to Kofi Annan, you have to send Sergio. He has all the skills, all the background, plus the Portuguese language, and no one else can do as good a job.
He had thousands of troops, thousands of police under him, and thousands of civilians. And they ran everything from military security and the border to the postage system and the stamp. I mean, everything was run by the UN administration through that period.
Em termos jurídicos, em termos de mandato, ele tinha todo o poder. Tudo. Tudo estava nas mãos dele. Aí nós sempre também realçamos, se ele quisesse ser um ditador aqui, teria sido. Ele tinha tudo.
Democracia. Não tem democracia. Aqui. Segredo.
Ele dizia-me, Domingos, para obter o sucesso de qualquer plano que tinhas, primeiro tem de entrar em contato com o povo. Para entrar em contato com o povo, tem que saber a sua língua. Aí ele começou a estudar a língua técnica.
It was no longer like, Shannon, myself, dealing with an obscure, faceless UN bureaucrat. We're dealing with a real friend, and sometimes he tells us things that no UN diplomat would dare to say, not even the American. But when he believed in something that was not on the books, on his mandate, he would contact New York, would fight with New York to change or to adapt policies to accommodate the East Timorese people.
He worked on governments to persuade them that their national interests somehow coincided with the broader international one, i.e. to support multilateralism rather than more limited bilateral action. He did it in Timor. The example that I remember is getting the US warships or frigates to stand off the coast of Timor during the whole peacekeeping operation. The US would not be part of UN peacekeeping. We're not officially there, but he persuaded the US government, with all necessary clearances, to have a rotating presence on the sea. And you wake up in the morning in Dili and look out, and if you're thinking of causing trouble, the first thing you would see would be a silhouette of an American battleship.
Things were done in rush. 2 years, 2 years and a half. You expect to build a three institution, a government, a constitution, security institution, law enforcement institution. You expect to build those one in 2 years? No. People expect so much, the expectation was so high. In the end of the day, they just realize that things takes time. Things takes time.
Enquanto a reconstrução da parte dos timorenses era pôr tetos em casa, em cima das casas, a reconstrução por parte da ONU era criar alicerces. Eu acho que é aqui que esteve a diferença de perspectivas. Pronto, agora, claro que os que esperavam só o teto diziam nada foi feito. Os que pensaram somente nas infraestruturas disseram muita coisa foi feita.
Timor, in my view, was one of the big successes in peacekeeping terms. Because not only did politically he managed the security situation, he secured the country by using the military in a pretty aggressive way. But Timor was secure, which Cambodia was not, Kosovo was not, Iraq, of course, wasn't even close.
The night of 20th of May, so it was East Timor's first day of independence, Sergio was exhausted. He was leaving the following day, and he stayed up virtually all night with a pile of hundreds of farewell thank you letters, writing in Dear Fred or Dear Esmeralda or whoever. He would write his own signature, and he would always write 1 or 2 lines to indicate that he knew who he was writing to, that he remembered the time when they met, when he could recall precisely the assistance they had provided.
I felt horrible that I didn't go to the airport to say goodbye to him. No, I tell you, I felt so sad and saddened. And then I thought to myself, am I saddened because Sergio left, or I'm just scared that now we are alone without Sergio? For the previous 2.5 years, we are relaxed. Sergio was there. Sometimes we fight with him, but we would go always back to him to help, to do this, to help, and so on. And we felt too used to him, too dependent on him. And that's what I think was my fear, suddenly the weight of the country on us. Almost like Sergio would say, you wanted independence, yes. You've been hassling us about when leave. Well, now we leave, and here is a country.
We hopped in a plane, the door closed. And I remember that Sergio putting his hand on the window. And when no one else was looking at him, bursting into tears. And I had rarely seen him breaking down in that way. He couldn't hold it any longer. He just broke down. He told me it was so difficult.
After hard talk, I went home at Easter and I took the tape. And I said, you don't really know what I'm doing and you don't really know who I'm working with. So, Dad, for a change, you watch one of my videos. And they sat down and watched it with one of my sisters and they said, wow, what an amazing person. And just 2 weeks later, I get a call saying, that boss of yours, his name's Vieira de Mello, isn't it? Yes. Well, we've heard he's going to Iraq. I think he might, Mum. Well, Dad thinks he might ask you to go with him. Yes, I think he might. Well, that's all right. I'm sure he'll look after you. He seems such a nice person. I wouldn't have gone there for anybody else.
The mission was different from any other. I mean, in East Timor, he had a very wide margin of maneuver because the superpower was not involved so deeply, and because there was no direct administration by the occupier. So the situation was extremely different.
I was here. I was here a few days ago. I remember you.
I used to tell him it's very hard to sort of widen our margin of maneuver under the auspices of 1483. And he would answer, yes, yes, I know. And that's why we should be careful that I don't become a Bremello, playing on Bremer and Di Mello. He used to say, I don't want to be a Bremello. Don't worry about that, Ghassan. I'm not going to be a Bremello. We are going to push for an autonomous role for the UN.
He spent about a month doing nothing but meeting Iraqis. From 8 o'clock in the morning until the evening, one group after another, he traveled all over the country. He went north, south, east, west. He met everybody.
He had been focused almost single-mindedly on the formation of the governing council, on making sure that it was as representative as possible of all the constituencies in Iraq, and making sure that it had as much executive authority as possible.
And honestly, at that moment, the Americans really didn't have the same kind of contacts that we had or Sergio had, and the same kind of ability.
Very early on, he was clear that occupation should end, not because of the attacks, but because of the attacks would be coming, he thought.
Security in Iraq remains tenuous. Too many are losing their lives on an almost daily basis. The United Nations presence in Iraq remains vulnerable to any who would seek to target our organization. Our security continues to rely significantly on the reputation of the United Nations, our ability to demonstrate meaningfully that we are in Iraq to assist its people and our independence.
The question of legitimacy, to his view, was crucial. I'm not sure that the coalition at that time shared his view about the crucial nature of legitimacy.
I think towards the end he was feeling a bit worried about where we were going as a mission and the role of the UN and so on.
His relationship with the occupying powers after the formation of the Governing Council was becoming increasingly difficult. And he felt that he was not getting enough support
from UN headquarters in New York.
Basically, both New York and the UN mission in Iraq were equally under the heavy pressure of an occupation and a terrible resolution. So it was not a problem between Baghdad and New York. It was a problem between members of the Security Council who produced such a terrible resolution that very much constrained the action of the UN, both in New York and in Baghdad.
I was in Europe and I had called Sergio, spoken to him, and I said, Sergio, I'm in Europe, and before I cross the Atlantic, I want you to fly out of Baghdad to see me, and I'm going to call you tomorrow to tell you where and when we should meet. And I was on holidays, and then he even reminded me, said, don't forget, Mr. Secretary General, you've agreed that I should go and see my mother in October. I'm going to take a whole month, 6 weeks. So I said, fine, and that was agreed. The next day, he was gone.
So he went to his office, I went to mine. And when I sat in my office, immediately the blow-up took place. So it should be, I don't know, 31, 4:32 or 4:35 p.m. Then I bumped into one of the bodyguards, Gabi, one of Sergio's bodyguards, and I asked him, where is Sergio? He said, I don't know. I told him, well, then come with me, let's go to his office to see if he's in office, because he told me he was going to his office. So we went up to the second floor. That was 2-3 minutes later. And then in his office, there was a huge amount of dust. And we had to wait at the door to his office so that the dust comes down. And then I discovered that the wall separating his office from the corridor, together with the floor of his office on the second floor, and also the floor of the first floor, had all collapsed, like cut with a scissor. The three sort of things, one above the other, and down on the ground floor, I could see people. Somebody waved with his right arm to me when he saw me. I thought it was Sergio, because that was his office. I now think it was Mr. Locher, who was his visiting with him. But then I said, Sergio, courage, on arrive.
Ce qui a changé, c'est que la fin est venue d'une certaine innocence, que face à l'extrémisme, au fascisme vert, que je ne confonds pas une seconde avec l'islam, nous ne pouvions plus croire à l'innocence du drapeau des Nations Unies. Nous sommes tous visés.
The truth about the August 19th tragedy was that the building wasn't adequately protected. The truth about August 19th is that the security systems failed and nobody took precautions.
How do we function as UN from a bunker with armed guards and armored cars? That's not the definition of the United Nations. We have to be accessible to the population. We have to be able to move. We have to move refugees or aid or even politically. You want to have an election, you can't do it from an armored car. If the UN goes in on the tail of an occupation force, whoever it is, it's a different scenario. It's not UN peacekeeping. So that raises fundamental dilemmas for the organization, which are being looked at in the security sense, and that needs to be done. Why wasn't there plastic on all the windows? It should have been in Baghdad, and there wasn't. Would have saved lives. But that's one aspect. The other aspect is the political one. Should we be there? On what basis? What are the criteria? What is the role? What is the mandate? And what is the security for that role? And if you remember the Brahimi report on peacekeeping, one of the recommendations that was there was very strongly the UN should make it clear that in some situations, no, we cannot carry out a peacekeeping mission.
Saying no is an option for the UN, but that's just talk. The UN can't say no if the Security Council sends it. The nation states represent the Security Council. They tell the Secretariat what to do. The Secretariat works for the member states. But once they get the mission, they should protect themselves better.
We are becoming much tougher ourselves. And as I said in the last two resolutions, we negotiated, you can give us a mandate, but we are not going to go in until I determine that the situation is safe. And that judgment is left to me and not the council saying, you have a mandate, you implement it. And I think that's a new thing in our relationship with the council.
Ce qui n'a pas changé, c'est que pour prétendre libérer un peuple, il y a des moyens qu'on ne peut pas employer. Et une certaine arrogance de la force, ça ne marche jamais. Ça marche parfois dans la bataille, mais la bataille, oh oui, ceux qui sont forts peuvent gagner une bataille, mais après il faut gagner la paix. Et c'était très difficile, beaucoup plus difficile, de gagner la paix ensuite en Irak, et il fallait le faire avec des civils, avec la communauté internationale, avec l'ONU, avec le Conseil de sécurité. Ça, c'est pas facile. Et là, Sergio était le roi.
What I see now is like a post-mortem victory for Sergio, because now they recognize that the whole process lacked legitimacy.
I think the doctrine of preemptive action died in Baghdad, and it's going to be for quite a while to see another kind of action like that. And if any government, any administration wants to go that route, I don't think it's going to be that easy to get the Congress or the American people on board, or the rest of the world.
So you need, on both sides, to really close the chapter of the war and to open a new chapter where those who went into the war recognize their error, their huge mistake, and the huge mistakes they have done since the war has ended, in disbanding the army, in disbanding the police, and this debassification, in comparing Saddam to Hitler and Baghdad to Berlin, all this bullshit that we heard since the war has ended. All this should be behind us. And on the other hand, those who oppose the war should become a bit more conscious that an unstable Iraq is a threat for himself, for his neighbors, and for world security.
He's one of those that I had thought someday would be in the job I'm in. For me, as a head of the organization and being that close to him, I felt responsible because I deployed them. I think nobody will ever quite understand how much the death of Sergio and the other colleagues hit me, except perhaps my wife.
I hope that the organization and the member states he served remember that it wasn't just what he did, it was how he did it.
He left very profound things, and you meet people a lot in your life, and you meet them, and they don't really leave profound impact on you. But he did.
My father died in the same year as Sergio was killed. I didn't feel the same thing. I felt love for my father, but I didn't feel that sense of personal loss that Sergio represented, I think, for all of us. He had that long impact. His absence still does. And I think it's because he shows us what's possible.
It's a little bit arrogant to think that we're going to really change the world. I think when you're 20, you think that. And then that universe gets smaller and smaller of what you think you can change. And finally you think maybe as you get much older, that maybe I'll try to just change myself a little bit and hope that will engender some kind of change around me. But accepting that fact that we're only putting drops in the ocean, but without those drops there would be no ocean. So Sergio had put in more than drops. He put in sort of lots of buckets of water.
He has left behind not just admirers and fans and friends, but he has left real live human beings who have directly benefited from his work, and they're all to be found in different parts of the world.
I have a little daughter who knows Sergio, and with friends they said, well, the body was being taken from here to there and so on and so forth. And then the little boy says, oh, that's Sergio, he's always flying.